In this video tutorial, we're going to go through one of the sample apps that shows a key technique on the Senza platform, which is how to switch between playing video in the web browser and streaming video directly to the device. We're going to use a sample app called Banner. Here in the developer documentation, if you look under Developer Tools, you'll see a list of all the sample apps. So we've got a launcher that has them all queued up and ready to go for you, and a description of all the apps here that you can try out. So we're going to try this one here called Banner. Now, if I look at it locally on my own computer, you'll see that it just plays a video full screen with an advertising banner across it. You can probably see why I work in the product team and not the advertising team. So what we're going to do is we're going to try running the hackathon launcher in the simulator. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the link for the hackathon launcher right here. I'm going to copy that. And when I go into the Senza console and click on simulator, that's going to open up in a new tab. Now, before I click connect, I'm going to turn on dev mode. That's going to show an address field here where I can paste in a URL. So I'm going to paste in the URL of the actual launcher, not that. Here we go. So here's the launcher. I'm going to copy that URL and I'm going to paste it in here. And now when I click connect, I'm going to see, instead of the default app, I'm going to see that launcher. So now if I use the arrow keys, I can select an app like this, and I'm going to go ahead and hit return to bring up that app, and then you'll see it playing here in the simulator. Now what I can't test in my own browser, but I can test here, is the ability to switch back and forth between showing video in the browser, which in this case has the advertising banner on top of it. And when I hit the return key on my keyboard to simulate pressing the OK button, it's going to switch to playing the video from the same position with sound. Thank you for that. You can tell I've watched this video way too many times. And if I hit return again, then I'm going to switch back to the seeing it in the browser. Now let's go try to see a little bit about how that code is written. So the source code is very simple thanks to a little script called Video Manager that encapsulates most of the complexity of playing the video and switching back and forth. So you'll see that the entire program is only 28 lines long in this case. We're going to import a few functions from the client library. We're also going to import the Video Manager, which is part of this program, and the Shaka player, which is what we use for playing the video in the browser. We've got a URL for our favorite one and only video, Big Buck Bunny. And here, when the window loads, the first thing we need to do is call that init function from the client library. And then when we're going to do some things, and then the last thing we're going to do is call the UI ready function. So the actual stuff that we need to do is pretty simple. We're going to tell the Video Manager to initialize itself using a new Shaka player with the video tag from the HTML. We're going to tell the Video Manager to load the video with that URL. That's going to load it into both the local player, which is what we call the video player on the web page, as well as the remote player, which is what we call the code on the Cloud Connector that streams the video. And then we're simply going to tell it to play. So what Video Manager helps do is it's a layer of abstraction that we can use to control the video, change what video, change the time code, change the playback, on the local player and the remote player together. The other thing we're going to do in the program is we are going to have a key listener that listens to button presses. So when I hit enter, I'm going to toggle back and forth between the foreground and background mode. So over here, I'll just do that again. I'm going to bring up the remote player. There it is. That's the remote one. And then when I hit enter again, it's going to go back to the local player. And you'll see that the transition is relatively seamless. And I can hit the escape key. That's the same as the back button to play pause. So I'll do that, and it's going to pause the video. And I'll do it again, and it'll play it. And then the left and right buttons will skip back and forth in the time code. Conveniently, you see the time code here on the screen. So if I hit the left button on my keyboard, you'll see that it drops by 30 seconds at a time. And if I hit the right button, it'll go forward by 30 seconds at a time. So that's the entire program. It's short, but it's powerful. Now, just looking at the Video Manager class itself, this is a file that you can drop directly into your program, unmodified, and that'll really help you out with the integration. You'll notice that we're importing two objects from the client library. One is the remote player, and the other is the lifecycle manager. So in the Video Manager, when I initialize it, I'm setting variables for both the local player, which is passed in, and the remote player, which is from the client library. This code helps to synchronize the time code between the remote player and the local player. If the video in the remote player ends, we're going to move back to the foreground. And in this case, when I'm switching to the background, I'm going to pause the video in the local player because there's no reason for them both to be playing at the same time. You'll notice that the load function actually loads the same video into both the local player and the remote player because we want them to be playing the same thing. We have some convenience functions for playing and pausing the video. This one toggles between play and pause. You've already seen how we can skip backwards and forwards. The move to foreground function is going to use the lifecycle object to call move to foreground. Move to background is done implicitly. Whenever we tell the remote player to play, it moves into background mode. Before we do that, we're going to synchronize the time code from the local player to the remote player. And then toggle background just toggles between the foreground and background states. So you don't need this file. You could do some or all of these things directly in the app, but if you use this file, it's going to help you out by doing it more conveniently for you. Now let me demonstrate two key techniques. One thing is that because we are using modules with this import command, we're going to need to use Webpack to build the app. So you'll see in the README this little command right here. That's something you'll be using frequently. If I go and paste that in, you'll see that it goes and builds it. What actually happens is that that takes all the JavaScript and puts it in this little file called bundle.js in the dist folder. And you'll see that that's the script that we actually load from the HTML. Now let's say we want to actually run this in the simulator. We're going to use a little tool called ngrok to help us out with the problem that because the simulator needs to access a web page that is being served on the public internet, if we want to run it from our own computer, that's a little hard, but what ngrok's going to do is create a tunnel from the open internet to your own computer. So if I just type ngrok HTTP 80, then you'll see that that's running. Now I can copy that URL, and in the local copy here, I can go and change this URL to So this is going to be the URL that points to the same web app on my own computer. Now if I go to the simulator, and I'm going to hit reload to start over, and I'm going to change that URL to point directly to that app and click connect, then you'll see that it is now going to load the same web app from my own computer. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned a little bit about how to use the remote player and how to test your apps in the simulator.